Now, here's your host, Johnnette Benkovic Williams.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams, very happy to be with you today on this Friday in the Lord, a day when we thank God for the gift of our salvation. Every Friday should remind us of Good Friday, and we should celebrate that gift that we receive in the salvation that Jesus Christ won for us on Calvary's Hill. We certainly do invite you always to be joining us here on Women of Grace Live. So many callers came in yesterday. Oh, my goodness. It was a full boat of a day, and I was so happy about that. And we certainly do invite you to make it the same today. We've got Sue Brinkmann with us. We're going to be talking about breaking news in just a minute here. So already, anything that you want to discuss in the news, anything that's on your heart or mind, begin now to get your questions to us so that we can be sure to get you on the air. The way that you do that is by using our toll-free number right here in North America. It's 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. We look forward to hearing from you that way. Matt Kabensky is call screening today. He is excited to take your calls, looking forward to hearing from you. He certainly is, always is. So please be sure to give him a great big howdy hey when you call in. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. We're also available to you out there on social media. Producer Jeff Burson, right on the other side of the window here. I can see him. He's wearing yellow today. It's kind of a buttercup yellow. It's very, very nice. I don't guess that's a very masculine term, but it reminds me of buttercups. Anything that reminds me of flowers is a good thing. So thank you, Jeff Burson. So Jeff Burson is our producer, and he's also our social media manager. He gets all of your questions up to me. And how does he do that? Well, he gathers them from what you put out there via EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. So that's yet another way that you can get your thoughts, your words, your inspirations, your comments, your insights, your words of encouragement to us right here at Women of Grace Live. Do want to remind you that we love getting your emails. We gather those all together, and we have email e-bag shows right here on Women of Grace Live from time to time. And your email might just be one of the ones selected to go on the air. We also oftentimes will address them in the context of the show because they very frequently have something pertinent to do with what was said the day before or after. So we certainly invite you to send your emails to us right here at EWTN. It's Women of Grace, all one word, Women of Grace at EWTN.com. That's Women of Grace at EWTN.com. We look forward to receiving them. I've been asking you to please send them in on anger, especially because on Monday we're going to be in television production for Women of Grace, seen Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, repeating at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN's television station there. The network broadcasts to, oh my goodness, so many stations throughout the world. And we're going to be talking about anger, and I'd like to be able to use your questions as real questions to put forward to our guest. So please do send in your questions on anger. We've received some already, but we're looking for more. He's going to be with us for 5 shows, so we're looking forward to being able to address what might be a real need in your life. I mentioned to you that Sue Brinkmann is with us. She is our Director of Communications for Women of Grace. She is also our staff journalist. Good morning, Sue Brinkmann.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. God is good. He's in his heaven. He's a providential God. Amen.
Amen.
It's tough to be down when the Lord is up, right? When the Lord is always
That's
there
right.
for us, So he's always.
And especially on a Friday.
Amen. Do you have plans for this weekend, Sue?
Well, I do, as a matter of fact. Just done a lot of cooking and baking. I'm going to bake a peach pie.
Ooh.
And a lot of stuff for my folks. I like to bake and cook for them on Saturday nights. That's what I do. I guess that's not all that exciting, but
well, it can be.
I love doing that.
Oh, that's lovely.
And I try all kinds of new recipes. So they're getting peach pie and good casseroles and cookies and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm doing that. And then I have my Carmelite meeting tomorrow. So that's always very inspiring. It gives me my monthly shot in the arm of Carmelite spirituality. So that's going to be a fun day, too. I always look forward to that day.
Well, it's wonderful. Well, actually, if I was where you are in Pennsylvania, I would ask if I could come over and be your official taste tester.
Okay, it's an open invitation. You may come.
Peach pie is delicious. Oh, my goodness sakes. And with a nice big scoop of rich French vanilla ice cream. Oh my God, that could send me into outer space.
Yeah, that would be great.
I guess we ought not to be talking about that right now because I'm thinking that a lot of you out there are salivating along with Sue and I. Well, I hope it turns out really well. It sounds like it's going to be a fun time and a really good time and a very generous time on your part. I know that you take care of your parents. You're elderly. Your dad is elderly, isn't he?
They both are, yes. They're both 87.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and we find ourselves, let's just talk about this for a minute before we head into the news, because this is a question that has been coming up routinely here on Women of Grace in recent weeks, and it has to do with elderly parents. It has to do with the care of them and how it is that you strike a balance between their care and the duties and responsibilities that we all face as individuals or as married couples or whatever the case may be. That is a hard line to walk from time to time, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely it is. And you never know when you're going to get the call.
Right.
It can totally disrupt your whole day. You just say, hey, you know what, I don't feel well. I think I've got to go to the hospital. And you have to drop what you're doing and go and take them over there. And you're sometimes sitting in there for hours and hours and hours and hours, in the hospital. So it's, you're always on call. It's something that you need a lot of grace for. You got to stay very close to the Lord. That's what I do. And I just tell myself when things are getting really hard on me, I keep saying, I look back through my life and I say, look at all they did for me. Look at everything they put up with from me. I can do this for them. And that kind of, I need the inspiration that gives me to keep going. But it doesn't make it really any easier, Johnnette, as you know, too. It doesn't. It's still hard. It can be very disruptive to our lives. But like I said, look at all they've done for us. So we just have to do it. We got to do what you got to do.
It's an interesting thing. I think that this is a situation that is more specific to our generation than past generations, where we reach a certain age and our parents are still living. The demands on our lives remain, and yet there is this, what would I say, graced duty and responsibility towards our parents that also needs to be factored in. We were recently at Malvern for our Women of Grace retreat together, Sue, and there was a woman there who shared with me that her dad passed away at 100 years, 15 days. And he had just passed, and this woman was my senior by a number of years, and it brought into my mind, my goodness sakes, it's the elderly taking care of the elderly in so many cases today, and it does require a special grace. I'm quite certain that God gives us that grace, but as you say, cooperating with it always involves the cross, and on a Friday like this, we realize that the cross is always a part of our lives. We commemorate this day to the gift of our salvation, but that salvation happened on the cross. And so one of the ways in which we cooperate with that grace is by working out our salvation through the various and sundry crosses that God entrusts to us.
That's true. That's right. And the cross is really what makes us malleable inside and enables us to be open to grace. That was something I was just reading in Father Neubert's book today on Our Lady, Queen of Militants. It's one of my favorite books of his.
I know.
I love that book.
So great. I just love that man. I just love him.
I know it. I can't get away from him. I just go from one book to the other. I just keep rereading them.
Well, frankly,
I love him so much. I read something from one of his books every morning.
Well, he's one of those. He's one of. And I just want to insert this here really fast. You say you can't get away from him. He's not a canonized saint yet, but he's not canonized. I think that he had such a beautiful bond with our Blessed Lady that if he's not in heaven yet, he's in the upper levels of purgatory, and frankly, I think that he won't let us go. You can't get away from him because he won't let us go. I mean, he loves Women of Grace, and Women of Grace love him. Go ahead.
Yes,
what were you reading?
I was just reading that today, where it says that really it's the cross.
Yeah.
That makes you malleable. Your soul makes it malleable and docile to receive that grace. It softens us up.
Yeah.
And really what it does is it humbles us, right?
That's right.
The cross is always humbling.
That's right.
Because it's through the cross that we realize how weak we are and how incapable we are of doing anything that the Lord really would want us to do. We can't do anything unless He helps us.
Yeah.
But we have to be reminded of that from time to time, because we tend to get self-sufficient, especially, I think, women. I think this is something we have because we're responsible for so much.
It's true.
We have our jobs, we have our families, we have so much that we're very often, very involved in ministry in our parishes, and that we have so much on us.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the reasons that we sometimes have to be reminded, hey, you know what? You're not the one doing all this work. It's me. And that's how the Lord does it, is through the imposition of crosses. They don't have to be anything major, but even little things, little annoyances and irritations. And when he usurps my plans, that's really the part. That's what I'm the most attached to. That's what I struggle with there, or is my schedule.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because just this morning I was having a conversation with a friend, and, and I was not complaining. I'm going on record. This was not a complaint, but I was discussing something that was troubling to me, and so I was moving through this conversation with a friend about what was troubling to me. And so as I was driving into the network this morning, on the way, I was recounting that conversation in my mind a little wee bit, and I thought, you know what, Johnnette, this is terrible to say, but I was just giving myself a bit of a pat on the back in recent days, saying, you're doing pretty well at detachment, which is funny because retrospectively, I'm not doing well at all with detachment, but I had this temptation to think that I was doing well with detachment. And as I was pondering the conversation, I realized I was not detached at all. And this is the thing that the Lord does. When you think that you're making progress in a certain direction or with a certain virtue, He puts you into a situation whereby you realize if you've made progress at all. I mean, it's not even a measurable progress that you've probably made. So He does humiliate us so that we see that our reliance is completely upon Him. Because left to our own devices, oh my goodness sakes, what a mess we would be in.
Oh, my goodness, that is so true. That is so true. And I just want to stay open to Him at all times. I tell Him that I want to stay open to Him. But, Lord, about my schedule, I got to get this done. So, I have the little buts that I throw in there from now and again. And He just loves to sometimes throw a ringer into my day and say, okay, this is what I need you to do now instead of that. But wait a minute, Lord. And I think, okay, you're the boss. I'm not. Yeah. And yes, Lord, fiat. I give you my fiat. But it's a struggle sometimes, isn't it? It's a struggle.
That's exactly right. Well, my loving deceased husband used to say this to me when I would get all wound up in something. He would say, Johnnette, in 100 years, we're both going to be dead, and none of it's going to matter.
Well, there's a thought.
It is, because the only thing that's going to matter, is our salvation, right? And it's true. And I think all of the minutia that we get lined up in, I don't know. Maybe you out there suffer with that same thing too that Sue and I are talking about this morning. But I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, Sue Brinkmann is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about some headlines. We want you to call in, weigh in on the discussion of the headlines or anything else that you want to talk about today. It is the real Sue Brinkmann. She is definitely with us. You can join us by phone right here in North America, and it's a toll-free number for you. It's 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. That is toll-free right here in North America. Also, social media is available to you. EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page is yet another way that you can get your questions, comments, insights, inspirations, words of encouragement up to us here. If you're outside of North America, here's a number for you. Country code 1-205-271-2985. That's country code 1-205-271-2985. And you can text us. You can text EWTN to 55000. That's EWTN to 55000. And let me say this, text messaging charges may apply depending upon your plan. We're going to go to that break. We're going to be right back. Looking forward to being with you live here on Women of Grace Live with our Friday guest, Sue Brinkmann. Stay with us.
Gloria Purvis.
We have the wrong understanding and appreciation of pregnancy. We need to do what's best for the child, not what's convenient for the mother, the father, or the doctor.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
July 27th. Tertullian said, "A certain woman went to the theater and brought the devil home with her. In the exorcism, the unclean spirit was pressed and asked how he dared attack a Christian. 'I have done nothing,' he said, 'but what I can justify, for I seized her upon my own ground.'" Let us reflect. To what extent do I place myself in moral jeopardy due to places I frequent, activities I engage in, and people with whom I associate? What resolution am I willing to make today?
If you'd like to receive a daily Grace Line by email, go to womenofgrace.com and click on the word Grace Line. Then click on the box Receive Grace Lines. That's womenofgrace.com.
Have you heard of Amazon Echo? It's a virtual personal assistant that allows you to use just your voice. You can listen to EWTN Radio just by saying, Alexa, play EWTN Radio. Check out the Amazon Echo today.
Here's today's quote from Mother Angelica's Perpetual Calendar. When the Lord manifests your weaknesses to you, it's extremely important that you be humble at that moment. It's only because we think we are better than we are that we have these so-called problems with humility. Mother's spiral-bound Perpetual Calendar features an inspirational message for each day of the year. It's available from the EWTN Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
The Women of Grace phone lines are open. 1-833-288-EWTN. 1-833-288-3986.
Welcome back, friends. You are listening to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams. It's great to be with you today. Sue Brinkmann is with us. She is our Director of Communications and also staff journalist for Women of Grace, our apostolate to women. We invite you to get out there to our website, womenofgrace.com. You can read breaking news that is put up there by Sue, as well as the New Age blog. She does all of the research for that, indeed. And what a mighty, mighty work it is, and what a great benefit and blessing it's been to literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So we invite you to get out there to womenofgrace.com, see what's going on there, read breaking news, join us as we continue to seek to transform the world one woman at a time through a program of spiritual formation. Sue, we've celebrated on July 25th, which was Wednesday. We celebrated the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae, and it was quite a momentous occasion, and lots of programming here at EWTN dedicated to that topic, as well as many great blogs that were put up there, and a lot of information out there on social media. And of course, that was the case with us too. I've really saved the conversation on this for our discussion today, and I wanted you to share with us a little bit about the importance of Humanae Vitae and the impact that it's had on society. And there seems to be a resurgence of interest, especially among younger women, regarding what Pope Paul VI wrote, predicted, prophesied when he wrote that beautiful encyclical to us in 1968.
Oh, it is. This was a landmark encyclical. It was so misunderstood at the time. It was actually touted for many, many years as being, the encyclical about artificial birth control, but it really wasn't. It articulated the Church's teaching on love and marriage. And for many of us women, when we really sat down and read that with an open mind, it's very hard to argue with it because it's really what we all want deep down inside. We want real love. We want our marriages to be strong and to be centered on love. And that document had such a great impact on me in changing my mind about how I saw the church. Mm-hmm. This was back in my days when I was just coming back to the Lord, and I was still kind of, had one foot in both worlds. And when I sat down and read Humanae Vitae, I just searched and searched for something I could find that was wrong with it, Johnnette. Like, what could be wrong with this? Don't tell me the Catholic Church and all those ancient dinosaurs are actually saying something that appeals to me. And that's how far away I was.
Yeah.
And I had to realize, I had to accept the fact that, I truly didn't understand my church. That's why I didn't like it, because I didn't know what it was teaching. I had no idea what I was talking about. Talk about being humbled. I truly was. And this document, though, I think that one of the appeals it has right now for the younger women is in a prophecy that Paul VI made about what would happen to women in their relationships when they began to use contraceptive methods. And he says in there that a man who grows accustomed to the use of contraceptive methods may forget the reverence due to a woman.
Yes. And
disregarding her physical and emotional equilibrium, reduce her to being a mere instrument for the satisfaction of his own desires, no longer considering her as his partner, whom he should surround with care and affection. And when you look around this world right now, what's going on with women, we have totally gone backward as far as our respect and our dignity in the eyes of this world. You look at this Me Too movement, 81% of the women in this country experience sexual harassment in their lifetime. 81%. So, it makes me wonder, why did Me Too take that long to get started? This has been going on a long time. You look at divorce and infidelity. Johnnette Smith, she writes in that great book, Why Humanae Vitae Was Right. She actually wrote that at the 25th anniversary of Humanae Vitae. But she says in there that contraception makes infidelity easier, and infidelity leads to divorce.
That's right.
So here you have it, the breakup of families. It's involved in that. Abortion. Nearly half of all abortions occur in women who are using contraceptives. So this proves that men and women are imbued with this contraceptive mentality. They're so intent on not being pregnant that they're prepared to do whatever they have to do to fulfill that intention. That's right. If that means having an abortion, that's what it means. And that has cost the lives of over 60 million Americans. It's the number one killer, by the way, too, of pregnant women in the United States today is not hemorrhage or hypertension. It's murder. And more than half of those women were killed by their partners. You look at this stuff. What he predicted 50 years ago, he has every right, if he were alive today, to look us all in the eye and say, I told you so. Because this is exactly what has happened. Domestic violence is up. The use of pornography is out of control. Sexual violence is way out there. Dr. Marianne Layden says the level of sexual violence in our society is at epidemic proportions right now. So we have not come a long way, I'm sad to say. We have not come a long way. Maybe we started to at some point during the sexual revolution or the early feminist movement, but I'll tell you what, we took several giant steps backward. And we are not getting the respect. We are not being respected for who we are as daughters of God, not even close right now in general society. So I think that Humanae Vitae, this is what's appealing to younger women. They're seeing this.
Yeah.
And they're saying, hey, you know what? I don't think I want to be that involved in this unnatural stuff that we're pumping into our bodies, this artificial hormones and that. And they're going away from that. They're getting more into natural family planning, which has become much more sophisticated than it used to be. It's no longer Vatican roulette, as they used to call it. It's now, involves both the spouses, and that means your relationships improve. And so they're catching on to that. And I think that that's a really good thing. I think that that's going to help us all across the board, even in a way to get away from this Me Too movement. And to stop all this sexual abuse of women. We need to get our respect back. And in many ways, I think, Johnnette, we have to be the ones who do that. We have to be the ones who step up and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to take this. You're not going to treat me this way, and I'm not going to go along with it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wanted to mention that on the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae, Johnnette Smith has given us another book, and it's Why Humanae Vitae is Still Right. So it's an update of her earlier work and taking a look at everything that's transpired with regard to that issue since its 25th anniversary. But, when you're talking here, Sue, there's something that really captures my attention as we look at the statistics and we look at the realities of the cultural presentation of women and the cultural acceptance in some way of this behavior towards women. And it is that with the use of contraception, in some way, a woman loses respect for herself. Now, I know that sounds peculiar, but she does. And I think that this is a primary problem, really. It's an undergirding problem that's causing a lot of emotional distress, causing a lot of depression, causing a lot of disorders that otherwise might not be present, because she's going anti-herself. She's working against herself, not only physically, but emotionally and psychologically as well. First of all, we know that the hormones that are used in birth control pills, and we're speaking specifically here about the pill, I am anyway at this moment, it alters the brain chemistry. It's the brain that regulates what's going on with the release of the hormones. It's the brain that functions through all of the glands of the body to make those things occur. So we're really fooling around with our brain. And you were fooling around with the brains of young girls who are not yet fully matured. It takes until the age of 25 for the brain to be fully mature. So we're messing around with these young women, and it has deleterious effects. The other part of it is we begin to see ourselves only as sexual beings, only as individuals to be used for sex. You know, and that's the problem. Just as you were saying, it makes infidelity so much easier. Well, it makes everything so much easier. Cohabitation, it makes easier. Promiscuous sex, it makes easier. And so a young woman begins to view herself through the lens of her sexual prowess, as opposed to the beautiful reality that she is meant to typify. And what is that? I mean, you know, Gertrude von Lefort tells us that the woman is the sign of the sacred. A sign in philosophy is always pointing to a reality higher than itself. It's a sign that points to something greater. And everything about the feminine person is meant to point to the sacred. She is a hallowed person. Everything is contained on her interior and is protected by veils. I mean, she is reminiscent of the feminine principle of all creation and the way in which God interacts with his creation. And so that's her sign. And when we work anti ourselves, we're miserable. You know, so there's physiological reasons and there's emotional reasons, there's spiritual reasons. I don't see a lot of really happy young women. Let me put it this way. I don't see a lot of young women that have great peace. That's what's missing.
Very true.
They can have temporary happiness through the next relationship, through the next encounter, through, the cultural mores of the day and time and the cultural expectations. But that is fleeting. That deep, abiding, interior contentment is missing. And I think a lot of this has to do with the thrust of contraception and the backup for when contraception doesn't work, abortion.
Absolutely. You know, and Dr. Smith actually writes that. And she says that the women that she's encountered, they know that there's something wrong with what they're doing. She said that many of them even admit that they know that they're being exploited.
That's right.
By using that, and they feel degraded by the use of it. And they know it's robbing them of their dignity, but they give in because they feel like they have to in order to satisfy their husband or their partner. And what ends up happening then is the woman ushers this whole new tyrant now into her relationship, and this is something Ruth Lassiter talks about in Smith's book. Says, under the guise of helping love, artificial contraception cunningly establishes a tyrant in the marriage. The sex act declines from a reaffirming of the whole marriage covenant, true lovemaking, to joint seeking of mutual satisfaction, a subtle shift but a decisive one away from God and the covenant of marriage.
Yep.
So it shifts everything away from love. And I think it's very true what Cormac Burke has written, too. He's, anti-life. When you become anti-life, which is what you're doing when you're using contraception, you're anti-life. You become, consequently, anti-love.
Absolutely.
The two of them go together.
That's right.
Anti-life becomes anti-love.
That's right.
And I think that that's something that women are, I think they're beginning to wake up to it. I really do believe that they are. And I think there's a variety of reasons for it.
Well, let's hold on to those reasons.
Towards the natural.
Let's hold on to those reasons for when we come back from our break. Friends, we want to invite you to call us right here on Women of Grace Live. Today, our guest, Sue Brinkmann, staff journalist and director of communications for Women of Grace. We invite you to pick up the phone toll-free here in North America, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Johnnette Williams here. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at YouTube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
And this is an EWTN Bookmark Brief. I'm Doug Keck. I just finished talking with Justin Fatika and Father Peter John Cameron about the Hard as Nails ministry Now, Father, you're coming on board full-time now, right? You
Yes,
had been, what?
July 1st.
Now, what had been your relationship prior to this?
Justin and I have been friends, and I've tried to offer some spiritual counsel and to give some input also to helping his missionaries at Hard as Nails since almost 9 or 10 years. So, yeah.
So you're coming on board full-time. And what's that web address if people want to get in touch with you or find out more about Hard as Nails?
You know where it's at, just like the EWTN series, www.rememberyouramazing.com.
That's right, and it was a great series.
It was.
And you're continuing to do more material for us, and we love it. Thank you so much. Talking with Justin Fatica and Father Peter John Cameron about Hard as Nails ministry. Look for the whole interview coming soon here on Bookmark. And this has been a Bookmark Brief.
EWTN, teaching the truth.
Well, I don't think we're like the typical college students because we really hang out at our campus ministry and everything. It's amazing about how much more connected you feel. We share really cool articles from actually you guys, EWTN, and like what you were saying about evangelization. So that's really nice.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. If you just don't understand something about the Catholic faith, Call to Communion is the show for you. It's coming up this afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Women of Grace with Johnnette Benkovic Williams.
Be a part of Women of Grace. The phone lines are open. 1-833-288-EWTN. 1-833-288-3986.
Well, welcome back, friends. You are listening to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams. Very happy to be with you today. Certainly love spending this time with you Monday through Saturday right here on EWTN Radio, brought to you by so many marvelous affiliates throughout the United States of America and beyond. We invite you to pick up the phone and give us a call today. Matt Gubensky is our call screener. Jeff Burson is our producer. The way in which you can join us via telephone is by contacting us at 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Just pick up the phone, give us a call. Out there on YouTube and Facebook, too, EWTN Radio's Facebook page and YouTube page. We're there for you. I'm waving to you today. Sue Brinkmann with us. As I was mentioning prior to the break, she is our Director of Communications and our staff journalist for Women of Grace. She brings us that New Age blog as well as breaking news. We're talking about Humanae Vitae today, and we've got some callers coming in inviting you to do the same. Again, that is 833-288-EWTN. While we're getting people up on the board here, Sue, just want to ask you a question. Prior to going to the break, you were going to give us some reasons. You were going to outline for us some of the reasons why we're beginning to see this dissatisfaction in young women, some of the causes of this displeasure that they've been experiencing through the use of contraception. Go ahead.
I think one of the main reasons right now is because of all of the bad effects of using synthetic hormones. I think that's all the different problems out there with Essure and Mirena and the pill and all this, and this drive among younger women to go more natural, to do things a little bit more naturally and get away from all these drugs and pumping these drugs into their bodies. I think that's a very big reason among them for wanting to get away from contraception. I think another big reason is they see the deleterious effects that this stuff has had on their mothers and on their mother's generation. They see the abortion, they see the broken marriages, the broken relationships. So I think that's another big reason why. And maybe even some of this Me Too is beginning to rub off on them and saying, hey, you know what, I deserve more respect than this. I'm not going to tolerate this. And the reason they're treating me like a sex object is because I'm behaving like one by using this stuff. I think a lot of them are starting to make those connections, too. So I think Me Too, although it's a disgrace and it's shameful, I think it went a long way in opening the eyes of America to the true status of women right now. And a lot of us were very shocked to find out that we really didn't get that far. And I think that younger women know this, and they see it. And I think they're starting to gradually move away from these kinds of contraceptions, especially those that involve drugs, synthetic hormones, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. You were mentioning earlier on, that when we were talking about natural family planning, that the early days of what we would term in that category, I guess, would be the rhythm method. And a lot of people are still very, very confused about that and believe that that's what we're talking about. But what we do know is the rhythm method was based on a 28-day cycle, and so it didn't give preferential treatment to any woman whose cycle was not 28 days. There was no figuring into that. And so as a result of that, a lot of women really didn't know when their fertile cycle was, so they would become pregnant. And that's why it had all of those rather derogatory references, to it as just being like, well, you mentioned Vatican roulette for one thing, and baby makers, and all kinds of other names that were given to that. But through the work of Dr. Thomas Hilgers, we moved into NAPRO Technologies, which is a highly sophisticated, scientifically based way of determining when a woman is fertile and when she isn't. But we don't want natural family planning to slip into another form of contraception either, do we?
No, absolutely not. And I think that we are permitted to be responsible parents. Our church permits that.
That's right.
And we always have to be open to life in all of our conjugal acts. We must be open to life. But what we do when we abstain during those times when we're fertile, and that way we don't really have to offend our Lord in any way because we're abstaining from the act during those times when the woman is fertile. And what you were saying about, NAPRO and the Creighton model is just so sophisticated. It's doing a lot more for women than a lot of these drugs and modern science has done for them, because it's tracking really what's wrong with their hormonal balances and that sort of thing. And it's really giving women a lot of relief from different kinds of conditions, gynecological conditions, that heretofore have just been treated with drugs.
That's
and
right.
now they're being able to treat them with, natural hormones and that sort of thing to try to help them to get over these problems. And then also it's very helpful for women who are trying to conceive and can't. And it's enabling them to conceive. So it has, extremely good success rates at that. Compared to IVF, even better than IVF. So it's definitely the way to go. And I think young women are seeing that. And they're saying, hey, you know what? Science has caught up with this. It really isn't the rhythm method anymore, which is what they used to call it.
That's right.
And how most of us came to be born was on the rhythm method. I know that's how my mom always tells us, you were born because of that. But
well, praise God for that one. I don't think anybody that's been born would say, well, gee, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, but very sophisticated monitoring devices now, variety of methods. There's even phone apps. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can help women who want to go natural to be able to regulate births in their family and also to see to their own health.
That's right.
Because this is not healthy, Johnnette. What we're doing here is not healthy.
No, it isn't. It's deleterious in so very many ways. And I think that one of the truths that you mentioned there, Sue, that's very important to underscore and to underline is the fact that there is a diagnostic reality to the use of natural family planning. So even if you are at a point, where you have this pretty well figured out, something begins to go haywire, it's going to show up in the tracking that you do, in the beautiful way in which a woman is able to appreciate the marvelous intricacy with which God's created her. And I've heard lots of people say, and you mentioned this earlier on too, that this does provide for a deeper connection between the husband and the wife. This is something that they do together. And I've heard husbands say, I loved my wife, but now I love her at a different level because I see things about her in relation to her femininity that I never knew or understood. So there's a depth of appreciation for just the fact that she is a woman, which is a lovely thing.
Yes, it absolutely is, and I think it gives them the opportunity to see that and to discover that about their wives when they become involved in the whole reproductive process, including with their own bodies.
That's right.
And I think that it just makes, we of course have research that tells us that marriages are so much stronger when they're based in NFP. it's just the way to go. And more and more couples are turning to it, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Maybe they're not right now turning to it for the ways that, we would want them to because they're respecting God as their creator, but they're at least starting to move away from that and getting into an area where I think, they might be more open to that message than where they were before, when they were so closed up and just, full of these hormones, synthetic stuff. And I just feel like it's a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, just get more natural with this.
Right. And, of course, I think that God in his mercy and his kindness inspired Pope Paul VI to write Humanae Vitae when he did. Of course, he was trying to begin to look at what science was providing and to see it through the lens of wisdom, God's own view of something, and to come up with a certain type of theological response to what was being presented back in 1968. The interesting thing is, given the culture at that moment in time, of course, the sexual revolution was already underway, but none of that had really hit where people live in terms of the reality of American life at that point. It wasn't the issue that it became in time. But he was able to see that on the horizon. And, in line with this whole emphasis on sexuality in our day and time, we know that there are all kinds of strange things that are taking place out there in the world today. And you've got something out there on Breaking News about the drag queen story. I want to talk a little bit about this. Share with us about that.
Isn't this awful? This is a movement by the Drag Queen Story Hour. They want to come into public libraries. They're being invited in there by the American Library Association, by the way, which is very progressive. It's called Drag Queen Story Time, and that's where they have drag queens come into your public library and they read stories to little children. And it's to capture their imagination and play of the gender fluidity of childhood. And it gives them what they're calling a glamorous, positive, and unabashedly queer role model to look up to. I think, why do we want this? The children, first of all, are probably going to be afraid when they see that because it's so strange. It's not something we see out in the regular world. And now they want to bring them up and bring them into libraries and to show them that, okay, you can present yourself any way you want, and dress up can be real. This is what they're trying to teach children, little kids. And it's going on in our public libraries with the endorsement of the American Library Association. So it's something that I think parents need to be aware of, and taxpayers in general. I mean, check out what's going on in your local library. And if something like that is going on, you need to write some letters to your city council, heads of the library, and say, you know what, this is not what I want to be done with my taxpayer funds. And at least stand up for, what's right. And our little children are being exposed to these bizarre ways of life, and they're not ready for this. They don't know how to digest it, to assimilate it in their minds mentally. They don't understand any of this stuff. And I think they just end up coming away frightened. But that they would sponsor this, the ALA just blows my mind. But it shouldn't, because they have a long history of getting themselves in trouble. They've sponsored the banned book weeks in schools, and that's where all the top books that are challenged by parents, they give students 1 week that they can read any of the books that they want. And the reason that the parents are challenging the books is because some of them are full of gratuitous violence, they're full of the occult, they're full of graphic sex, vulgar language. I mean, they're banned for a reason. But the ALA believes that you shouldn't have any kind of censorship at all, not even for age. And children should be allowed to read whatever they want. So, this is the kind of organization that's sponsoring these drag queens, if that tells you anything.
833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986 is the way that you can join us right here. Come chime into the discussion that Sue and I are having. Another thing I want to say, we're getting close to the start of school. I know in Florida, our schools start very, very soon. I think it's like August the 6th, the kids come back, or it could be the week right after that. So we're moving our way towards the end of July, moving into August, lots of schools starting back. And I think the parents need to be very, very aware and very cautious of just the kinds of things that you're pointing out here, Sue, with regard to the American Library Association. When you think about that, we would never have been afraid in the past to send our children to the library. But today, the libraries have really begun to be a distributor of the agendas that are out there flooding our contemporary culture. Another aspect of all of that I think is well worth mentioning is to be very careful about the book fairs in your children's school. If there's a book fair going on, obviously you as a parent are probably going to be invited to participate, but look carefully at the books, because what you're mentioning here about a lot of the books containing violence, a lot of the books that are considered to be award-winning books, that'll have the little seal and the star on them, a lot of those books are just riddled with ideologies that are very much opposed to the revealed truth of sacred scripture and the teachings of the church. There's a lot of New Age things in these books. There's a lot of unhealthy fantasy in these books. There's a lot that's in there that would really present a relativistic point of view. And so I tell parents they must be very, very careful about the literature that their children are reading. And I'd like to say that our Catholic schools are safe from this, but our Catholic schools are not safe from this. And oftentimes these book fairs are used as fundraisers, and I get the need to support our schools, but we still have to be outrageously judicious in what comes into our homes. And you, with the research that you do, you're well aware of this.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of very serious problems inside of our schools. We report on it all the time, I look for it, so that I can get the news out there, get the word out, and alert parents to different things that are being introduced in schools. It might not be introduced in your school now, but, seeing it introduced in some, a place in Ohio or some other, it's just a warning that it could come to your school, and be careful about it.
That's
right. Be careful who you're electing to your school board.
Absolutely.
Is another thing that I highly recommend to parents. Get involved in that activity and be sure that the people on the school board represent your views.
That's right.
Because this is another thing that happens.
Yeah, and there's a lot today that's being presented, as information, education, but it's really indoctrination. And so we've got to be very outrageously aware of this. I've got a YouTube question here, or a text question actually, from May, and she's saying her niece is in the they bees movement. She does not want to give son a gender yet. What can I do? Who are these people? Are you familiar with this?
This is just, yes. This is, now the parents are taking up this thing, and they don't want to give a gender to their children. They want their children to pick their own gender. This is now taking the whole gender ideology one step further. Now we're actually letting the children decide for themselves. And what I would do is expose these, whoever they are, if they're your relatives or friends or that, to some writings that have been done by the American College of Pediatricians. They come right out and say that this whole gender ideology thing is harmful to children, and they give you facts. This isn't just opinion. This is facts that of how this is harming young children, and it's something that you can't really turn a blind eye to. They're using all kinds of hormone treatments on these kids. They have no idea what the long-term effect is going to be on them, if it's going to cause cardiac disease later in life, high blood pressure, clots, stroke, diabetes, cancer. They don't know any of this stuff. Rates of suicide are nearly 20 times greater among adults who use cross-sex hormones and undergo sex reassignment surgery, even in countries where they're very much affirmed, such as Sweden is one of them that I've come across. So we do not know the long-term impact of this stuff, and giving this to children is using them as little guinea pigs. You have no idea what's going to happen to that child, what that child's going to get into if you start to raise them up thinking that they can be whatever gender they want when we all know they can't. Biologically, they can't. They are male or female down to their DNA.
Well,
that you just can't change that.
And that's what's so frustrating.
You're setting them up.
That's exactly right. This bifurcation, and this was an intentional move, by the way. Don't. This is not progressive thinking. This is not science. This was an ideological, intended move to bifurcate gender from sex, to make them two separate, distinct things. There is no distinction between gender and sex. There are two sexes, there are two genders. That is it. And when we bifurcate that, psychologically, I think we're abusing children because they become very confused. We create the confusion for them. We create it.
Absolutely.
I mean, imagine being a little girl or a little boy coming into a family, this poor woman's situation here, and this little child is not being called a son or a daughter. We identify ourselves that way. Son, daughter. There's a I don't even know what the right word is, but maybe like a tribal instinct within us. We need to belong. And if we don't know who we are in that belonging, what is my identity in this group, in this nuclear family? How confusing can that possibly be? I mean, it's sad. You're like the puppy. You're like the kitty. It's like, who am I? It's so wrong-minded. I don't know what May can do. I pray, obviously. Pray. That's what we always can pray. We've got some callers, too. So, May, what I would say is pray. And I would pray for those little children, and I would affirm those little children to the extent that you have any kind of interaction with them. Affirm them in their beauty, in their dignity. You know, you can't to try to deny a child of the reality of who he or she is because of some, I have to say, wrong-spirited, because this is a spiritual issue. Ideology is so horrendous. Callers coming in now. We've got Mara on the line with us from Burlington, Wisconsin. How are you, Mara?
Good, Johnnette. This is a very good show, and especially with the anniversary of Humanae Vitae, that this is so important. And I'm 67 now. I got married at 62, and when I was young, I took the pill. I didn't even know what I was doing, really. I just knew everybody else in college was doing it. I didn't have a moral or Catholic compass or anything like that. And and if it wasn't for the people that you had on your show in years, like Jason Everts and Dr. Smith and all the people who were talking about, good female sexuality and stuff, I don't know where I would have formed myself, because my family didn't really have a Catholic reference. And so, I regret it. And every time I see the people on TV for Silent No More and all of that, I realize that, it's kind of a chemical, the pill is like a chemical abortion kind of. And,
yes.
And I mean, I didn't even know what it did at the time. And I regret taking it and reverted to the church. But I recently went to a chastity event, and a man reported a young girl saying, "I didn't know I had a choice." And I thought that was very sad indeed, because without the education and the outreach to the young people, they'll just have these loose impressions. And then another thing in closing is that I just talked to somebody whose granddaughter had a sex change operation, and she did it right before high school graduation, sort of like a big splash, like a hairdo or something. But she did it as a basis of belonging with her peers. She didn't feel like she felt, and so that's what she did. And I don't hear that very often, but that's a very sad component to it too. So I just thought I'd lay that on the table, and thanks for this. So,
well, Mara,
we
thank you for your call, and thank you for sharing your story with us. And I'm afraid that story is one that's well repeated in the lives of many, many women. But what a great grace that you've come back to the church. And I want to try to get to Angie if we can. Angie's in Houston, Texas, listening to us via Guadalupe Catholic Radio there. Angie, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, Johnnette. I love your show.
Thank you. Thanks. And you had a comment that you wanted to share with us.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what your guest and you are shining a light on the library. I was a Houston Public Library worker, and I'm sorry I said the name, but I became aware of children's books from way back in the 1920s filled with occult.
Oh, my goodness. Well, this is, and we're down to just 20 minutes here, Angie, so I've got to let you go, but I wanted to get that testimony in. Sue, thank you for an incredible program today and all that you do for Women of Grace and all that you do for the people of God in so many ways. Always good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Love you lots. Okay, friends, we love you too. God bless you now. Have a blessed, safe, happy weekend. Bye-bye now.